Hey everybody! I decided to go ahead and jump on live this afternoon to talk to you about the advantages that language facilitation has over speech therapy. And I'm talking about this topic today. It's very important, I think it is to me anyhow, because I have already spent more than a month talking to all of you about why it's important for parents to be language facilitators for their kids. And now I want to tell you 6 reasons, 6 advantages taking that approach with your child has over speech therapy. So I've just introduced myself. For those of you who are new or you are just joining this live for the first time or one of my videos for the first time, my name is Marcy Melzer and I am an intuitive speech language pathologist, and I help parents teach their late talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that with my Waves of Communication parent coaching program, where I literally transform parents into language facilitators. And they are getting their children to start using words naturally, functionally, within 3 to 6 weeks consistently. Every single parent in the program. I'm so proud of them. And I see Ashley's here. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining me on this live today. And if you are just joining me now, or if you are catching the replay, you can see lots of videos of mine here on my Facebook page. I've been talking about language facilitation for a while. And today I want to talk a little bit about the advantages, not just you do get your child talking, but the real advantages that this approach has taken over speech therapy. And I want to start by telling you a little bit of history, like how did this come to be? Like how did I figure out this unique, different way of helping parents teach their children how to use words naturally? And it comes as obviously an evolution in a long career. I've been a speech pathologist for 30 years, and I have worked as a consultant and contractor in most of my jobs. So I have literally worked with people in about every kind of speech therapy environment you could. People from 0 to newborns to 100-year-old people, and over 100 even, on speech and communication and language and swallowing and different kinds of things that a speech pathologist does. And I evolved my career to working primarily with children who are late talking. And I say late talking instead of speech delayed or language delayed because in my professional view, I've seen so many hundreds of people, children who are not using words for many hundreds of different reasons, each one their own, actually. And what I have done over the years is evolve in my own practice to get to a point where I want to make it as easy, happy, safe, and fun for families to be able to see improvement with their kids as possible, because that's how I like to live my own life. So what I did was I decided, as I wanted to retire in my older years, driving around and visiting people in their homes wasn't viable for me. I was helping a lot of families do that, especially when I worked for the state and did early intervention work. I helped many, many families do that. And then the system became prohibitive for me to work in because there were more and more restrictions and requirements for me to perform like everyone else did. And my own personal evolution and my therapy evolution was evolving more and more towards a true parent coaching, where I really was, instead of just, showing them how to do things, I was giving them the strategies that they were making improvement themselves. And when my system broke down, when it wasn't longer viable for me to work in the early intervention system anymore, I decided to try to figure out how to bring this to people and how to bring it to more people, because if I can coach parents and help them see improvement in my neighborhood, why can't I do it around the world? And so, in order for me to learn how to be able to do that, I had to join a program. I had to get some coaching and understand how to do it. And it is because of that coaching and that coaching program that I'm here talking to you today. It's also because of that program that I figured out how to, and I'm getting a little teary because that means it's true. For those of you who don't know me, when I start getting things emotional, I leak. So it's just, how my body tells me that things are going on. Anyway, so when I learned how to do this program and how to reach people all over the world, and I have been able to help these families really get it together and help their kids in ways that I never could, even when I went there, like even when I went to families' homes. This system that I've developed, because it incorporates training the parents to be the full-time language facilitators. That's what it takes. It takes the parents doing the work all the time for you to be able to make the kind of changes that I promise in my program. And I promise in my program that parents are seeing, you can see your nonverbal or limited verbal child who's not using functional communication, but has the ability to make sounds and does have the ability to communicate with you. They're just not using words. I've taken 10 families and got them from that status within 3 to 6 weeks, most of them 4 weeks and under, to using real language. And I never have ever met any of their children. And just the idea of that is so out there and unusual and sort of unheard of for anyone to think of as far as a speech therapist. What do you mean she just told you how to do it and you did it? I don't understand. That's not how speech therapy works. And if you think that, you're right. It's not how speech therapy works. It's how language facilitation works. And so what I'm going to tell you right now is I sat down and I've been coming up with this idea for a while because I really wanted to find a way to concisely explain exactly how this unique, very I dare I say revolutionary way of helping children learn to use language has been so remarkably effective that I want to make sure that you understand exactly the benefits and why it works. So I developed it so that I can reach a lot of people. And in the process of reaching a lot of people, Australia, Sweden, all over the United States, in the process of reaching out to all those people and helping them facilitate language for their kids and see the remarkable improvement I have, I've learned so much just from these first families that now I know exactly how the process works. And the newer families that are coming in are making progress even faster because I've honed down the process to get to a point. And I'm going to explain to you the advantages and why this process works. And the first one is that you as parents can always 100% trust and rely on the language facilitator who is working with your child. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's you. So as soon as you become a language facilitator and you adopt the mindset of a language facilitator and you take on the responsibility to help your child learn how to use words naturally, then you are the only one that you can rely on to get the job done, because a language facilitator parent takes it on. You can't rely on me at all. I never see your child except for on video and what you share with me. So you're doing all the work. And so what the advantage that has over a speech therapist, any speech therapist, even the best speech therapist on the planet, even if it was me coming to your house to facilitate language, you can do it better, and you can always rely on you. You can never 100% rely on anybody else, no matter how much knowledge they have. Because what happens to a lot of parents is that they lose their speech therapist for one reason or another, because they the speech therapist is doing the language facilitation, speech and language facilitation, and the speech therapist is leaves, or you run out of money and you can't pay for them anymore, or that person leaves the practice and they put a new one in, or the school year ends and your speech therapy stops, or your speech therapist gets married, or one of many reasons that you potentially could lose access to that person who is doing the language facilitation for your child, because speech therapy is child-centered. It's about teaching a child, facilitating speech and language with the child therapeutically. In fact, many insurance companies require you to document as a speech therapist that you are working individually with the child in order for them to pay for it. So most reimbursement systems and structures for speech therapy, because the speech therapist is the one who's trained to do the teaching of the therapy, all of the therapy with your child. The parent's not trained to do that. Speech therapist went to school, we learned how to do it. We, extensive schooling to be a speech pathologist. And most speech pathologists are amazing. Some are less amazing because they don't incorporate parents at all in the sessions. So even if you have the best speech therapist in the world who is, working with your child, and you're watching them and you're learning strategies and everything from them. Hey, Tracy, sorry, I said hi, and Christy's here. Thanks for joining me today on the live, talking about language facilitation and how it's different, the advantages it has over speech therapy. And so when you are the language facilitator, you never have to rely on anyone else, and the therapy never ends. So, that's one advantage. You always 100% can rely on the language facilitator, because the language facilitator is you. And then the second advantage language facilitation has over speech therapy is that you have volumes more intervention time with your child, because it just makes sense. If you take your child to a speech therapist, or even if a speech therapist comes to your home, the exposure of that therapist to your child or with your child, the time they spend together, is limited. It's limited to maybe, in the best case scenario, if you're seeing your if your child is working one-on-one with a speech therapist, 3 hours a week, if you have 3 hours a week scheduled, even in that hour of therapy, certainly it's not all spent 1 hour of that in language facilitation and speech facilitation, because that therapist has to document the session. They have to tell you what's going on. They may have to travel from the waiting room back to the therapy space and back again to the waiting room. Maybe your child had a meltdown and they didn't get much done, or your child was tired, or there was a fire drill, or who knows what happens to potentially interrupt that time. So in 3 hours, in a whole hour session, you're lucky if you get 30 minutes. In a half hour session, you're lucky if you get 10 to 15 of real intervention. And the therapist's job is to get as many responses from your child as possible. So they're going to spend that time drilling and expecting and waiting and hoping and facilitate, trying, as hard as they can to make your child do talking during that therapy time. And so during that therapy time, that is the hardest work they do, that gets done at, 45 minutes to 90 minutes in 1 week, okay? 45 minutes to 90 minutes in 1 week. Language facilitation, you have the opportunity to interact with your child probably about 8 hours a day. So your child probably is awake 10 hours a day, and 2 hours of the day they're doing something that you're not directly facilitating language with. So in a speech therapy, we're talking about best case scenario, 90 to 100 minutes. That's maybe an hour and a half in a week. And in your life, if you're doing language facilitation all the time, because you're doing language facilitation even if your child wakes up in the middle of the night with a bad dream. So every time you interact with your child, you're helping facilitate language. So in 1 week, I did a little math. Where's my math? So in 1 week, if your child's 8 hours, that's 56 hours 56 hours of time as a language facilitator that you have to be able to facilitate language with your child. Every minute they're awake, they can be learning language, because you're going to set up even the time that you're not interacting with them, because when other people are interacting them, they're facilitating language. So in the case, hey, Sarah's here, in the case of some of my families who have multiple kids, they teach their other kids to help facilitate language, so they don't have to do it all the time, but their child is still getting language facilitation all day long. And I see a couple likes about that. So that's a huge advantage. It's just time. No wonder kids with language facilitation make faster progress, and that's the next advantage. The big advantage that language facilitation has over speech therapy. And I'm even comparing this to myself as a 30-year career speech therapist. Language facilitation gets better progress when I don't even see the child than it does when I see the child. When the person who is the main language facilitator is not the parent, you just can't see fast progress. And here's the reason. Yes, you see more time. Obviously, more work at something is going to create a faster result. So that's the number one reason that you see them faster. We just talked about that. But the other reason is that language facilitator is you. And you as a parent have a connection with your child that no one else can emulate. Even me, and I'm intuitive, I am able to connect energy with pretty much any kid or animal that you bring at me. That's just kind of how I roll, especially children. I can pretty much tell you how a child feels when I just walk by them. And that's just kind of me. And when I talk with the families that I work with about the energy that I feel with their kids and help them learn to interpret that energy the same way that I do, because no one knows that energy better than you. And you know it when it changes. You can perceive when it goes up and down. You can perceive all of that stuff. And because you are the language facilitator and you are working all the time, and you are the one who can get in there, can get to that connection point where you always understand what your child wants, no matter what they're using to communicate, because that's how you survived as long as your child's old. If your child's 3 years old, for 3 years you've been trying to figure out what your child wants, whether they're using words or not. If your child's 5 years old, you've been doing it for 5 years. If your child's 12 years old, you've been doing it for 12 years. You've been trying to figure out what your child wants. And I can show you how to know what they want and train them to use language to say it yourself. And that's what's tricky. That's the thing. That's why language facilitation makes faster progress, because you can't make any progress unless you can get over that hump, unless you can get over what their resistance is. And that's the other reason that it makes improvement, is because it always is the same 4 fundamental things that every child must have to learn. And the opposite of speech therapy. You can't force your child to talk. You can't force your child to do anything, okay? Except for stay out of the street when you pick them up to keep them out of, you can force them physically by stopping them. But you can't ever force a child to talk. You can't ever force anyone to talk, unless you're the Marine sergeant and you tell someone to say something, by threats or something. But certainly that's not the way to get a child to talk. Making them talk, I think giving them a reason to talk is what a speech therapist would say is, we do. Instead of making them talk, we give them a reason to want to talk, which is what a language facilitator parent does. But a language facilitator parent never forces the issue ever, because every strategy you get is happy, safe, fun, and easy. And in order for your child, anybody, to do anything, try at anything new and unusual and unfamiliar and that they might be afraid of, it has to have those 4 components, all 4. It has to be happy, it has to be safe, it has to be fun, and it has to be easy. Because Otherwise, you don't have a reward in it. And a language facilitator parent can do that, can get over the hump where a speech therapist couldn't. I mean, when the kids that I made progress with, that's what I did, was I worked past, I worked through those things and taught them how to do it. And what I figured out is how to teach parents how to do that. And that's why you can make progress in ways that a speech therapist never can. Okay? And so, all right, so where are we? Number one advantage is the confidence in the facilitator, because the facilitator's you. And I see Kimberly and Sheila just joined me. Hi, ladies. Thanks for joining me. We're talking about the advantages of language facilitation. And I know you just joined me. You can catch the replay to get the rest of them. All right, so confidence in your facilitator, more intervention time, faster progress. So that's the first three. Number 4 is permanent results, okay? So once you overcome your child's, that's kind of what I just started talking about before. Once you overcome your child's resistance to using words, and because the strategies that you use with them are happy, safe, fun, and easy, then they learn that words are useful. And once you learn that language is useful, you never lose it again, because it's just like learning to ride a bicycle or learning to walk or learning to eat or learning to breathe. I mean, when we first figured out how to breathe as infants, our bodies learned to do it. It was kind of a natural thing. And then we were like, okay, this is good. And when you put your head underwater, when you're going swimming, you realize it's a pretty good idea if I go to the surface and take a breath, because it's useful for you to have air. Language is almost as necessary, okay? In order to exist in the world with other people, you have to have communication that is similar to the people that you're going to interact with. If you learn to speak Portuguese and you live in the United States, you're going to have a hard time, because people might speak Spanish or English, but there's not a lot of people around who speak Portuguese outside of certain neighborhoods, and you're going to be very limited to that neighborhood if all you speak is Portuguese. And if you learn to speak, if your child is learning to communicate with you using nonverbal ways of dragging you around and their own sign language they made up and and different vocal patterns and things like that, that's not a pattern, that's not a communication structure that's going to be able to help them communicate with the world. And language, in the language that you speak every day, even if it's 2 languages. One of my language facilitator mom is teaching her little guy to speak English and Bengali. Fabulous. So I'm really excited to explain how, this is so much revolutionary different from speech therapy, because you just do it naturally all the time, and it's permanent, and you never lose it, because once you have communication and you realize how useful it is, that's the first thing. And I often say this to especially my younger language facilitator parents, the ones that are really good at letting you know what they want, even though they're not using words. Those are the kids that grow up to be negotiators. Those are the ones that verbally will banter with you. The ones that are trying to negotiate you to do that. Be careful what you wish for as a language facilitator parent, because once you teach your child that words are useful, then they start telling you what to do and what to be and come here and look at this and all that, because you've been telling them what to do their whole life. Once they learn that words work, that they can tell you what to do to get what they want, it's all over. And that's what's so exciting about what's happening with these families. The kids are telling, even the kids that just have one phrase. I just talked to a family today that his new phrase is stand up, because he wanted his dad to keep jumping, and his dad was tired, and he sat down and he said stand up, because that's what he wanted. And this was a little guy who 2 weeks didn't have any interactive speech at all. So when it comes to be useful, kids keep it. They're never going to lose that language facilitation. And with speech therapy, speech therapists often teach kids skills like exchanging a picture or a sign language, or playing together with toys. They might spend a lot of time working on joint attention because your child can't even sit and do the speech therapy yet, where they're trying to do the flashcards and play with the words and the structured things they're doing. So they might spend the first month of speech therapy teaching your child how to do speech therapy. And I know that I had to spend a lot of time teaching kids how to do speech therapy when they were at school because that's what they did when they came to see me. And your child doesn't need to know how to do speech therapy. They need to know how to use language to communicate naturally. So you don't need to teach them how to do flashcards and stuff. Now, flashcards can be very fun to play with as a language facilitation tool, but that's not what it's all about. It's not about labeling pictures. It's about telling your parents what you want and how you feel and all the things you like. And I see that Gil and Laura and Kimberly are joining me. Thanks for joining me, everybody, on my live. I'm really glad to talk to you today about the advantages of language facilitation. I know this video is getting long, but I really want to explain this to you. So here's the next advantage, the number 5 advantage, and I think this is a big, big advantage for parents. No more appointments. You don't have to drive across town, put your child and your other child and all of that, lock the dog up, stop your life, pile into the car, drive across town in traffic. I have talked to families that drive up to 2 hours to go to their speech therapy appointments. And think about all the language facilitation you could be doing in 4 hours of travel, plus, and for your child to get 30 to 45 minutes of intervention with a speech therapist at a thing. It's no wonder that parents don't believe in speech therapy. I have a lot of parents who I talk to on strategy sessions who are leery of the kind of program that I have and the kinds of things that I promise because they've been working with speech therapists for months or even up to a year and not seeing results because they aren't taking advantage of these kinds of advantages, okay? Their kids aren't getting enough language facilitation. They're only getting a little bit. So you don't have to spend your time schlepping to an appointment that's not going to be nearly as effective as you could in that day. So instead of you're jumping in the car to go to an appointment, you could jump in the car and go to the library and do language facilitation yourself. Or you could jump in the car and go to the mall and do language facilitation there. Or you could go to the park and do language facilitation there. Or you could stay home and build a fort and have a tea party and do language facilitation there. That's what's a really big advantage of language facilitation over speech therapy. And then the last advantage, and this is something that I've been playing around with even, when you talk about anything new, everybody wants to know, what does it cost, okay? And I sat down to figure that out. That was the other math that I did. And I started to sit down and figure out the comparison of cost between language facilitation and speech therapy. And I talked to the people in my business consulting thing, a group that I'm in, and I've talked to all of them about it. Some people who've been in sales for a long time. I've never been a salesman. I'm a language facilitator. I'm a speech pathologist. I'm a parent coach. I'm a teacher, a guide. I help people, to make changes. I don't know how to sell things, but I want people to know how it works and what it is, because I know when I buy things, I want to know everything up front. I want to know what it is all about and why it is, and parents should be no different. So that's what this video is all about, and that's why I'm talking about cost. Now I'm going to tell you why I structure my cost the way it is now. So for 30 years, I have worked, the majority of my time I've been a contractor working for the state or an agency or something like that as an independent contractor and business person myself. And I've always had to do 2 jobs. I've always done my work as a speech pathologist, but then I always had to work evenings, weekends, Saturdays, while my kids were at their music practices and things like that. I was doing money collections. And I was having conversations with parents about insurance co-pays and all of this stuff. And I decided that when I move forward with my language facilitation program, I'm going to structure it in a way that is a transformational program. It's completely comprehensive and a lifetime program. So once you're in my program, Waves of Communication, you never have to see another speech therapist again. You have access to me for the entire process, from nonverbal child all the way through to chatterbox status. My child's negotiating with me. You were right when you said be careful what you wish for. I mean, I want every family in my program to see that kind of improvement. And I know that I can do it because of this method, because of this language facilitation method. So what I've done is I've structured the program to be an upfront payment. And that upfront payment is similar to what you might think about paying for 3 to 4 months of private speech therapy. So yes, it's an investment. And it's, one that a lot of families think is significant. And I understand that it's a significant investment, but the way I structure this upfront pricing is that you make your payment, or you're just a few payments, and then you're finished. We never have to have another financial conversation again. You never have to worry about how many more speech therapy sessions do I have to have, because you have access to me to provide you with the exact strategies that you need to help your child for the entire process in my language facilitation program, Waves of Communication. So the advantages, like I said, I have talked to dozens of families who have been in speech therapy for 6 months, a year, kids who are in their, who are more than 8, 9, 10 years old, who have been in speech therapy and school therapy and ABA therapy and all kinds of therapy for years. And parents continually pay, tuition at private schools and all of these things, and over and over and over with limited results, because the speech therapist is ultimately focused on working with your child. And even the ones that are coaching you, that are there, aren't giving you the exact strategies you need to intuitively understand your child and dig in to get to where they are, but in a safe, happy, fun, and easy way that you want to do, and that your child wants to do, and that you see improvement in. And so for just the investment of a few months of, what it would cost for a few months of private speech therapy, you can have a comprehensive, lifelong program to train you to be a language facilitator and support you the entire journey, the whole way through. So the families who are in my program that I that I talked about this with, I said, how do you feel about the value of this? Is that investment of just a few months, worth of therapy? And they tell me over and over and over again how, had they found this years ago, they would have saved so much money in all those speech therapy fees, because they could have been doing language facilitation themselves. And so that's the sixth and a very important advantage that I believe language facilitation has over speech therapy. And that's the other reason that I structured the program this way. I want this program to be accessible to as many families as possible. And I know that a fairly small upfront investment is going to be so valuable for you that, I promise you, every family in my program, if I give you 10 strategies and for some reason they flop, I give you 10 new strategies. You never lose me. And here's the other thing. a lot of families see, in fact, most families see improvement, a lot of improvement in the first 3 to 6 weeks. I mean, really starting to use language in 3 to 6 weeks. But I have one family who's looking at making some real changes in her child's schooling and therapies as a result of the improvement that in his functional communication. And they aren't looking at starting that new school or that new program until even 3 to 6 months down the road because, it's summer now and they're looking at starting things in the fall. And so what's great about this program is that, they're going to be really good at language facilitation then, but I also support parents in helping with language facilitation with everyone in your community. So I'm helping this mom structure with school her IEP goals and even her child's educational placement because I have so much experience working in schools and know how IEPs and all of that stuff works. And I feel like it's part of my role as your guide, your mentor, because I'm not really in this sense even acting as a speech pathologist. I'm acting as a mentor, a coach for you. I can't turn you into a speech pathologist because that requires a master's degree and 350 hours of clinical practice plus 9 months of a CFY year and lots of work, okay? But I can train you in how to be a language facilitator as long as your child meets certain criteria, as long as your child is able to communicate with you in other ways and they're able to say speech, then, and you've been able to teach them other things, they understand you all the time, then you can do it. And the parents in my program have proven it. And that's what's so exciting about it. So I know this has been a long live. I know it talks a lot about, this unusual program of language facilitation. And I really hope that it has helped all of you in understanding. Hey, my sister's here. Lauren, nice to see you. We need to have a conversation. We haven't talked for a little while. And Andrea's here, and so is Danielle. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me on this live. Once again, my name is Marcy, and I am an intuitive speech-language pathologist, and I suppose it would be helpful to tell you how to work with me. If you have any comments about what I've said on this video, please share them here, and I'm happy to respond. So that's one way. The other way is I have a free class on my website called wavesofcommunication.com. You can go there and take my free class in language facilitation. In that class, you can identify if you have what it takes and if your child has what it takes to be a language facilitator. It's a great class. And then you can schedule a strategy session with me after that class where we can identify for sure if I'm able to help you, because I don't put any family in the program until we have a session where we talk about, you have to be 100% confident that, I can provide you the strategies that you need to be able to help your child. And that's what we do on that strategy session. So you can reach out to me with a private message and I can hook you up with that class as well. So 3 ways to contact me: leave a comment here, send me a private message, or visit my website, wavesofcommunication.com. Thanks again for joining me, everybody, learning about language facilitation. Thanks for liking that, and I'm really glad to be here today. I'm going to be back on Saturday with my live Q&A. Okay, so every Saturday at noon Eastern, I do a live Q&A right here. If you have questions about language facilitation or your child or your language development, or even wonder if this is working for you or could work for you, that's the time to visit my feed right here. If you hit the notification button, you'll get notified when I go live, and you'll be able to join me then and ask questions about your child and your language facilitation journey. And I can tell you how to give you some tips to get you over the hump, hopefully, and get you started on your language facilitation journey with your child and get them using words functionally within 3 to 6 weeks, and sharing their wisdom with the world and negotiating with you and being a chatterbox kid and all of that stuff that you hope for your late talking child. No matter why they're late talking, as long as they meet those criteria and are able to learn language, I can get you helping your child to learn language. Thanks again for joining me today, everybody. I'll see you again soon with my next live broadcast, coming at you with new language facilitation information all the time. Every day there's a new topic or article here for you. And you can see them all on my YouTube channel too. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.